When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Carl's Locker. User: YGuy55. Posted May 14th, 1997.
I still remember the smell of that YMCA. A mix of chlorine, old sweat, and whatever brand of floor cleaner left the tile shiny but never quite clean. It was where I went most nights in the early 90s, back when I was just trying to keep myself from backsliding into the bottle. The gym wasn't much, but it was cheap, and it gave me somewhere to be that wasn't a bar. They had these dented metal lockers, gray with peeling paint, numbers stamped in fading black. Every night I'd rent the same one, number 213. I can't tell you why, except maybe it was near the end of the row and I didn't like people brushing past me when I changed. That first week, I noticed something odd in the back corner of 213, a red plastic keychain, one of those cheap ones with a slit for a paper label. The paper inside was yellowed and curly, but you could still make out the name, Carl. I asked the front desk about it once, and the old guy behind the counter shrugged. Carl was the janitor here for years. He died in the boiler room back in '79. The heart gave out. Locker's just been in circulation ever since. That was it. No mystery. But for some reason, I kept the keychain tucked inside, never threw it out, like maybe the locker still belonged to him and I was just borrowing it. About a month later, I found the first note. Folded up tight, wedged in the back corner where the metal had rusted through, written in blocky handwriting like someone who'd done time. The paper was fresh, though, not yellowed like the keychain label. It said, "You're doing fine. Just keep coming back." I thought maybe it was some AA guy screwing with me. Someone from the meetings I went to in the church basement down the street. Maybe they knew I always used 213, but when I asked around, nobody fessed up. The next night, there was another note. This one said, "Don't skip the steps. Pain first, relief later." I should have thrown them out. Instead, I folded them into my wallet. I started noticing things after that. When I was lacing up my shoes, sometimes I'd catch the faintest sound of humming down by the boiler room. Old gospel tunes, the kind of stuff my grandma used to play on her radio. But when I'd walk down the hallway, it would stop. Other times, I'd open up the locker and it would be warm inside, like someone had just shut it a moment earlier. And the notes, they kept coming. Little encouragements, sometimes even warnings. "Don't call her tonight. One more drink and you'll lose your job. Stay humble. You don't know shit yet." Some were so specific, it made my skin crawl. Like the one that said, "Your landlord's lying about the water heater." Sure enough, 2 days later, the guy finally admitted he hadn't called the repairman at all. I told myself it was a coincidence. The mind looked for patterns, right? But then came the one that broke me. It was a Friday night and I was hurting bad. Work had been hell, my boss breathing down my neck, and the loneliness hit me hard on the drive home. I stopped at a liquor store and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes staring at the neon open sign. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Look, I didn't go in, I swear. I just drove to the Y instead, and locker 213 was waiting for me. Once again, inside was a note, folded real neat. This one said, "Don't. I've been there. It won't fix it." I sat there on the wooden bench, the hum of the fluorescent lights in my ears, and I swear I felt someone's hand on my shoulder. Just a moment, firm, solid, and then gone. And that's when I started talking to Carl. Out loud sometimes, even. "Thanks, man," I'd mutter. "You really think I can get through this?" Nobody ever answered, of course. Not in words, anyway. Well, months went by. My sobriety held. I kept every note in a shoebox under my bed, and every once in a while, I'd go through them like a diary. Some were smudged like they'd been written in a hurry, others crisp and careful, but all of them felt true. One night, I stayed late, shooting baskets in the empty gym. When I went to grab my stuff, I saw something new. The keychain wasn't just sitting in the locker anymore. It was clipped to my own keys. I didn't put it there. That scared me enough that I skipped the Y for a week. But on the 8th day, when I finally went back, there was a note waiting. "Don't run. I'm not here to hurt you." Well, for reasons I still can't explain, I believed it. The last note came in the winter of '94. I remember because there was a blizzard that shut the whole city down. I still went, walking through the snow up to my calves just to keep my streak alive. Locker number 213 creaked open, and there it was. "You don't need me anymore." That was it. No signature, no sermon, just that. And then they stopped. No more notes. The keychain disappeared too. One night it was just gone. I asked the desk guy about Carl again, trying to fish for anything I hadn't heard. He told me Carl wasn't just a janitor. He'd been an old drunk, just like me, carried a flask in his coveralls. He'd been trying to sober up before he died, and nobody even knew if he'd made it to meetings. I walked down the hall to the boiler room door, paint blistered from years of heat. Stood there, just listening. For a second, I thought I heard humming again. Then the pipes clanged and it was gone. It's been a few years since then. I moved away, built a life. I still work the steps, still keep myself clean, but every so often, when things get real hard, I'll dream of the YMCA. I'll open that dented metal locker and there'll be a fresh note waiting. Carl's blocky handwriting telling me what I need to hear. And then I wake up with the same thought every single time. Maybe ghosts don't haunt places. Maybe they haunt habits, the things they couldn't finish. Maybe Carl finally found a way to finish through me.
Subject, Sea of Leaves. User, PO50R. Posted, August 13th, 1997.
The call came in around 4 a.m. It's a woman on the tape speaking in what they used to call a whiskey voice. Nowadays, you'd describe it as raspy or husky. She only says a single sentence after the operator picks up, 8 words before the line goes dead. He left her in the sea of leaves. If you're not from here, you might think this was a crank call and not pay it much mind. The 911 operator knew better, flagged it, and reached out to us. Ken Howard was on duty at the station. He's a short, rotund Irishman with a gray walrus mustache and a nose full of broken capillaries. Even if alcohol has kept his career with the department in first gear, he's reliable and cares about his job. Ken agreed that even if it was a crank call, it needed to be checked out, so dispatch sent a patrol car out to the Sea of Leaves. The Bensonhurst Woods run from the interstate all the way through to the university, comprising around 5 square miles of maple forest. In its northwest corner, there's a depression in the land, a clearing where only grass grows. Because of a quirk in the topography, a particular combination of elevation and tree density, the wind seems to get funneled into the clearing more than anywhere else nearby. Most of the time, you wouldn't know it, except in the fall when the maples start shedding and dried leaves outline the currents of the wind like dye in an angiogram. Whichever one of those swirling paths you should choose to follow, you'll find yourself at a place of dead things, the Sea of Leaves. If it falls from the trees in that wood, it ends up there in a waist-high morass of moldering vegetation. Death in that place isn't limited to the trees. The depth of the clearing and the weight of the mulch is enough to smother any small animals whose parents didn't do a good enough job of warning them away. Family pets, too, have found their way into the Sea of Leaves. Not one of them has found their own way back out. It's rare for human bodies to land there, but it happens, and that's why Patrolman Tim Siskind was sent to follow up on the call. A set of women's underwear staked on a thick tree branch at the end of a forest access road signaled it hadn't been wasted effort. Another cruiser was then sent, this time 2 men equipped with long probes to help them search for bodies. It took less than an hour for them to locate the remains of Eleanor Sharp, identified by the ID in her purse. As homicide police, my phone rang not long after that. Out at the Sea of Leaves, the forensic team had set up their lights, shining a beam into the sky that could be seen for miles. Seeing it, I sighed. Even if it was unavoidable, it was going to draw all the wrong kinds of attention. By the time I got there, Miss Sharp's body had been removed from the mulch to prevent any further decomposition. Pulling back the white sheet she'd been covered with, I recognized her face immediately. She was a waitress at the truck stop on the edge of the woods. Back when I was on patrol, that place was part of my beat, and I got to know some of the staff, including Eleanor, whose name tag always read Ellie. Working in a truck stop, you have to be tough. Brash, I guess you'd say. And she was, while never losing the sweetness that drew the attention to her in the first place. I racked my brain to remember if she'd ever mentioned any family. There'd been a husband once, some deadbeat from Arkansas who she'd dropped one day and never looked back. No kids. She'd been tight-lipped on the specifics of that, but I always got the impression it was a medical thing. Not being able to have them, like. It had been years since I was on the beat, however, so we couldn't even assume she was still working at the truck stop until we had a chance to ask around. My first order of business was going to the address on her ID to see if there was anyone at home who needed to be informed of her passing while maybe shedding some light on her life. Her home turned out to be a small 2-story house on an acreage out by Musgrave Line. It looked cozy, windows closed tight against the now howling November wind. The lights were off when I arrived, and several knocks at the door did nothing to change the situation. Would eventually come to learn that she lived alone and had for years, and was indeed still waitressing at the truck stop. promising the people of the city that we're going to catch whoever did this would be irresponsible of me. All I can publicly say with any certainty is that we're doing our best with what we have, which isn't much. There's something else, though. Something I can't say publicly. I think we have help. Ever since the investigation officially began, every line of inquiry has sprung out of the three main questions facing us. Who killed Ellie? Who called in the location of her body? And what, if any, is the relationship between the two? When we started, 911 sent over the recording of the call and it got filed. It wasn't until we hit a dead end on the potential ID of the caller that we actually listened to the thing. 3 of my investigators were clustered around one of the tables we'd been using to organize our files, the tape recorder between them. I was at the coffee maker refilling my cup when they played the audio. He left her in the sea of leaves. Someone hit rewind and played it back a second. He left her in the sea of leaves. The voice was tough, but underneath that toughness was sadness, longing, a sweetness. When the recognition hit seconds later, I dropped the coffee whitener, powdered creamer, puffing out all over the tiled floor. I turned toward my team and told them to play it again. The rewind button seemed to squeal forever, then the message repeated a third time. I knew that voice, had heard it ask for my order 100 times back in the old days. It was our victim, Ellie Sharp. I tried telling this to the team and got the response you might imagine. After all, how could a dead woman report her own murder? I asked myself the same question and even tried to convince myself I'd been wrong. Running down the number that had called 911 put the final nail in that coffin and threw the investigation into total disarray. The call had come from the cozy little house by Musgrave Line. We had the victim's voice on tape in a call we knew originated from her home, reporting the location of her own dead body. It's the sort of revelation you never write down in official files, just in case the reports end up as part of a prosecution. A halfway smart defense attorney would use that to muddy the waters so much it wouldn't matter how airtight the rest of the case might be. Officially, we were never able to identify the 911 caller. Unofficially, we know what we know, even though we can't square it rationally. All I can think is that Ellie is still out there somewhere, trying to guide us toward whoever did this. I know I said earlier that it would be irresponsible of me to promise the public we'd find Ellie's killer, and it would be. That hasn't stopped me from making the promise to myself or to her. Anyone brave enough to cross back over the river Styx to find justice deserves that much.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.